Hey everyone, my name's Andy. My channel's Finding Value. I've gotten a lot of comments on what I posted about the uranium possibly having a pullback. What I'm going to do, since this is an financial educational channel, is show you what I'm seeing and to show you some of the companies and what I mean by we could potentially have a little bit of a pullback here. How big is it? What does it look like? Some of these have gone up quite a bit and they need to rest. They need to pull back. And I'm going to show you exactly what I'm seeing and what some of the candlestick patterns look like. So I'm going to go in here. I call this a uranium update because it's more focused on uranium. So in what I think is going to potentially come, and it's going to come at some point, doesn't matter what I think, but a pullback is going to be coming. This is based off of statistical probability. It's not 100% for sure. What I'm seeing is called a bearish engulfing pattern, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. It's a candlestick pattern. It can be short or a long-term pullback. Long-term or short-term, it means it could be weeks or it could be months. That's what I mean by a short to long-term. It's not years. Short, it's weeks to months. The pattern that I'm seeing, I have it circled there, is called a bearish engulfing. It's a bearish pattern where there is a lot of momentum in favor of price falling. And what it is it's a very large candlestick. The body of it, it's this red body that engulfs the candlestick before it, the body of the candlestick before it. This is called a bearish engulfing. Now, a bullish engulfing is the exact opposite. It's an up day, which engulfs the one before it. It's a bullish pattern where there is a lot of momentum in favor of price rising. What's important is the size of the bearish engulfing. That's important, and where it's located. So I'm going to show you some charts. They're non-uranium based to show you what I'm seeing in other charts, so you have an idea of what the pullback could potentially look like. They're all going to be different, but I just want you to get used to it. So here's gold, and here is that bearish engulfing of the candlestick before it. This body engulfs the one before it, and it's exactly like this pattern right here. It's where there's a lot of momentum that just changed. So this says there's a high statistical probability. We've had a big run up where this price momentum can change and go down. And that's exactly what we saw. This is a pullback in an up cycle. Now this pullback isn't monstrous, but it did go from 2075 down to 1775. But if you see, this is the bearish engulfing pattern right here, and this is what ensued after it. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, about 4 months in length. And now it looks like it's reversing and going up. We've got a nice little pattern developing here, and hopefully it breaks to the upside. But this is what it looks like for one of them. Now here's another pattern that I've seen, SM Energy. Here it is, bearish engulfing, again, right at the tip. Now what makes this one stronger is the one before it. The opening price and closing price is basically the same. It's this little cross pattern that we have before the bearish engulfing. It means that the buyers and sellers are starting to equal each other. And then the next day, the sellers came in and absolutely stomped on it. Just smoked it. Now, looking before this, if you look, we've got a wick on the bottom down here. We've got this is called a bullish piercing. It's this pattern. They call it something else. It's called a rising sun here. I call it a bullish piercing. A bullish pattern where price looked like it was going to continue down and then moved up. That's what this one is. This is a bullish engulfing here. And this is a big up day where the momentum showed itself. And see the sellers, they had absolutely no response. No response, and then the buyers came in and popped it higher. So this right here, this all stacks up on top of each other. Then we saw a move higher. Notice between this move here, the down days are very small and not too much. There's another bullish engulfing there. But they're small. They're not very big. And then all of a sudden we see this big bearish engulfing pattern. That's a step change. And notice that this pullback wasn't very much because it's a very strong stock. Now notice how there's a step change here, big up day with the small little down days. We need to notice these things, and this potentially I think could go higher, and this could be the low down here at $5-ish. Now I'm going to show you one last one, EXK. Here's another bearish engulfing right here. See how it's a big body stick going down? That's a reversal pattern. It wanted to run and then it reversed and sold and then it sold off. This is a correction pattern. Bearish engulfing, bearish engulfing, bearish engulfing basically. This is stacking up like this is going to fall. Then it fell. Then we've got a bullish piercing here, a bullish piercing here. We have a bearish engulfing, but this is at a different location because it's after a nice big bullish piercing. So it was a fight down here. And it looks like the buyers won on this. This is a bullish engulfing there, bullish engulfing here with the small little pullback. The sellers are just leaking out, and then we went higher. So that's what we're looking for in these chart patterns for uranium. So here's the first one, UU. Now I'm going to go through a whole bunch, and I'm going to show you some that are good, and I'm going to show you some that look like they potentially could pull back. So when you look at this, and obviously you've got a bearish piercing here, followed by a bunch of buyers coming in and answering right after. So it's boom, higher. Here's another bearish piercing, and we went higher right after. We're still in this uptrend. And here we just have a little consolidation pattern. So UU does not exhibit the traits of one that's going to necessarily fall. This actually looks like a continuation pattern, potentially. Now I'm going to get into one that looks different, and I'm going to show you a bunch that do exhibit the traits. So here's a bearish engulfing here, but it went right back down to the trend line, right? Now here's two of them in a row. Notice how they're getting bigger as well. We've got, you know, a contraction here of a cross, big move down, but we have a wick on the bottom which says, there's some buyers here still. Then we've got another bearish engulfing right here. So it's two of them in a row. This starts to stack up. Let's see if this line holds, because we're right on this line right here. Now let's look at other companies in the sector to see what they possess, because we don't want to just look at one company. We want to look at the breadth of it. So we look over here. This is Fission. This is called a bearish piercing, and we've got some sellers here, and it broke through this uptrend line. So it's potential. Maybe we come back up to the line and then fall over, but I bet you we're going to see a little bit of a pullback, possibly. This is statistical probabilities here. And this one right here, just to go back real quick, is called dark cloud cover. That's this one. A bearish pattern where price acted like it was continuing upward, but then reversed. Right here, boom. That's what I'm looking at with Fission, right here. That's a dark cloud cover. And that's where we're coming back. We also had a dark cloud cover here, but it only went back to the line, but this one broke the line. So I'm starting to see some companies starting to break their uptrends. This is Denison Mines. This is a bearish engulfing, because it engulfs the 1, 2, 3 before it completely on a very large down day, almost a 9% down day, and it broke through its trend line. Perhaps this comes back up and touches the trend line and then rolls back over, or perhaps it sells off. It's just something I'm seeing to let you guys know that I'm starting to see some sellers here. Next Gen Energy, bearish engulfing, and then we've got dark cloud cover. See how you see that? Dark cloud cover here, and it still fought its way up. We still have some buyers, but if this line breaks, potentially we pull back some, because this is quite a bit above the 50-day. And I'm not saying this thing's going to absolutely blow out. I'm just saying maybe we come back to the 50-day-ish, something like that. But that's a good percent term where you could pick up shares at a cheaper price. That's all. Looking here, UEC, it's got the same thing. This is dark cloud cover, and then we broke this uptrend line. So maybe it comes back down to this trend line. You know, it's not, you know, that's a 35 cent move, 36 cent move down to $1.40. That's a substantial, you know, move down if you want to pick up more shares. You can also see that the momentum is starting to roll over. Starting to see the volume kind of taper off a little bit. So, but potentially this could come back with this dark cloud cover and this move down. It's a pretty big move. Here's North Shore Global Uranium Mining. Again, you know, I've got some, this is a bearish engulfing, bearish engulfing of the ones before it, means that we're going to head lower, and you can see how long that lasted. We've got the same bearish engulfing. It's not as strong as the other ones, but we're right on this very steep trend line where we might be breaking through this steep trend line to pull back. This thing's pulled up quite a bit. I'm just seeing, you know, it is a bearish engulfing. We did break this trend line potentially. It's one to watch. Again, this one here is also a reversal pattern. These little black candlesticks, it opened up and then throughout the day it closed lower. So it's one where the momentum is starting to shift and we're starting to see this shift. So this potentially could pull back. You can see the momentum starting to come down. This is a very steep climb here. Bannerman, bearish engulfing. We're starting to see it amongst the breadth of the market. This one here, we had a candlestick or a wick at the top here, and this was all the pullback mustard. Not a lot of sellers here. But I think those sellers are starting to show themselves. They're starting to come up. And this may hold in a trend line for a little while and then fizzle out, because it's showing that the sellers are here and it's a momentum change. That's what we're looking for, is momentum changes. Now, this is on the opposite side, Sky Harbor. This one's got a bullish engulfing, went up, and see how the candlesticks are all very small next to it? It's kind of at this thing. This looks like a pattern that wants to go to the upside. I'm just showing you the opposite side of it. Here's Standard Uranium. This is the same thing. It broke its downtrend, went into this pattern, broke to the upside, and see how this, we've got a wick on the bottom and it's a small little candlestick in comparison to all these other ones. This also looks not too bad. Looks pretty good. Govix Uranium, it's the same thing. We broke this little downtrend here. We've got a bullish engulfing here, moving on up. We've got wicks on the bottom, lots of buyers. They're not huge candlesticks here. And then we've got a nice big surge higher here and not much downward movement. Maybe this goes sideways and then continues higher. So this one still looks strong. Global Atomic looks pretty strong too, although the momentum has slowed quite a bit. And we've got, so I mean, we've got a wick at the top and it's consolidated where the buyers equal the sellers. So it's resting, and then we'll just have to see what comes up. If you see a bearish engulfing pattern, it's probably going to go down. If you see a bullish engulfing pattern, it's probably going to go up. So that's one to watch. So remember, this is all statistical probabilities. Now, would I go sell some of these companies? No. No. That is not what I mean by this. I'm just saying that some of the companies are showing some weakness and we could potentially see a pullback. And I'm seeing it across, 4, 5, 6 different companies, not just one or two. We also have some of the laggard ones that still look pretty good. Govix, Standard, and Sky Harbor. So those still look pretty good. Global Atomic's just sitting there. UU is just sitting in a pattern too. So I'm not saying that the whole sector is going to go down. I'm just saying I'm seeing signs where we could potentially have a pullback. So what we're looking for when we look at some of these patterns is we're looking for the patterns that are in here in terms of bearish engulfings, dark cloud cover, which is a bearish piercing. I'm looking for those patterns now to see if I'm seeing them across a bunch of different companies. I've seen it in about half of them. The other half still look good. So what does that mean? It means we could potentially have a pullback, because even the URNM, which covers a bunch of different stocks, is showing that bearish pattern, which means the majority of them possess a pattern that wants to come and potentially pull back. Remember, statistical probability. Now, uranium still is at a 60 to 1, 60 pounds uranium to 1 ounce gold, which is dirt cheap. I would not be a seller. I am holding absolutely everything that I hold. I am looking at this as a potential buying opportunity in the future. That's all I'm looking at. So now you know exactly what I'm looking at in terms of what happened in other sectors and what that chart pattern possesses. So look for that chart pattern. Look for bullish engulfings, bullish piercings, bearish piercings, and bearish engulfings. And those patterns are pretty reliable. It doesn't mean they're 100%, but when you see it and they're breaking upward trends, then they become more powerful. And if you see multiples in a row, that means that the momentum is changing, and most likely it is a legit signal. If you see one in a uptrend with a lot of momentum, that may not have as much, we'll call it as much of a, I'm losing my train of thought. It's not as valuable as it would be if you see a bunch of contractions in a row and then you see that pattern, which means it's most likely going down because the momentum has stopped, the buyers have equaled the sellers, and now we saw who dropped the hammer. The sellers dropped the hammer and broke it through the downtrend, or are going to attack that uptrend. So things to look out for. I'm not doing anything in terms of selling. I'm just saying we could potentially have better buying opportunities in some of these companies. And if those are the leaders that we just saw coming back and we see them continue to pull back, perhaps the ones that are in the middle and the laggards will eventually, work its way to those to have a pullback. So if you like this content, subscribe to the channel, click the thumbs up button, and thank you for listening. This is Finding Value.